Alright, this is chapter 45. We're going to breeze through this. It's only 58 slides. Alright, we're going to talk about MCIs, which are multiple casualty incidents, the National Incident Management System, or the NIMS. I know y'all are familiar with the NIMS. Don't you love the NIMS?
Love it.
Wasn't it interesting?
I'd rather claw my eyes up.
Yeah, me too. We're going to talk about triage and disaster management. EMTs Tom and Joe are the first EMS unit to arrive on scene of a tour bus collision, in which the bus hit a bridge abutment. A half a dozen patients with various injuries have made their way out of the bus. Help us, one man says. There are people dying in the bus. What steps do Joe and Tom need to carry out to establish an organized response? They just need to let everybody off the bus at the same time. They need to set up. You can go here, you can go there. How's this going to work?
Carefully and slowly get everyone off the bus in an organized manner.
Okay. How should they decide which patient should be treated first? Triage. Fantastic. All right. We're going to learn about the roles and responsibilities of an EMT during MCIs. The number of patients needed to declare a multiple casualty incident varies according to the resources available. Okay? Does everybody understand that? It's not how many patients you have, it's the number of resources you have available. At East Carroll Parish, we run 2 trucks, all right? So a 3-car MBC could be an MCI to us, all right? You can only hold 2 patients at one time. Especially critical patients. I don't like hauling 2 critical patients at one time. I'd rather just haul 1. But however, I have done it, probably will do it again. Alright? Here in Monroe, where you have, I don't know, 20 trucks on the road a day, 10-car pileup would probably overwhelm the system here. Okay? Because you have other 911 calls and stuff going on as well. Alright? But a 2-car wreck on the interstate is not going to overwhelm their system. All right? Does everybody understand that? It's not the amount of patients, it's what your system can handle. All right, an MCI is any event that places excessive demands on personnel and equipment and typically involves 3 or more patients. All right? You will have a variety of calls that can lead to multiple casualties. Besides a wreck, can anybody think of something else?
Natural disaster.
Okay, natural disaster. Hurricane. Asteroids.
Forest fires.
Forest fires.
Earthquake.
Okay.
Plagues.
School shooting. What about a carbon monoxide poisoning in a home?
Yeah, that'll do it.
That'll do it. Poisonings. Yep.
The Black Plague in China will do that.
Yep. All right. A variety of events can lead to multiple casualties, and it's better to go ahead and get too many resources than have too little. Okay? You can always call and be like, hey, yo, we got it covered. Okay? Thank you for your response. NIMS, the National Incident Management System, provides for flexibility and standardization. All right? It's a consistent approach to managing disasters. The components of preparedness standardization are planning, training, mutual aid agreements, and preparedness exercises that involve multiple response agencies. Preparedness standardization is intended to lessen the confusion as to who is in charge in MCIs and to facilitate the building of working interdepartmental relationships and to provide responder experience in the incident management system. Okay? Here lately, well, the last probably 10 years, we have school shooting mock-ups. Okay, we will have one here. We do them for the college as well. All right, most of the elementary schools, high schools, middle schools, they have a drill where they will actually portray to see what the kids do, what the teachers do, how the police come in and handle the situation, how the first responders come in and handle the situation. Okay? All right. Completing training exercises in a controlled environment provides experience to responders and leads to the certification and qualifications that is necessary to manage a disaster or multiple casualty situation. The training exercise help identify and resolve problems with the disaster and multiple casualty plans before an event occurs. Let me just go ahead and tell you, you can drill your department, you can drill your school, you can drill the police department, you can drill your responders as many times as you want to, and it is never going to go the way that it's supposed to go. Okay, here in Monroe, they do exercises out at the airport with Acadian, the fire department, a plane crash. Okay, it's really fun to participate in. I don't know if this is this the time that they have that? Or was it spring?
I did it in like April.
Okay.
So it must be spring.
So y'all gonna miss out on that. But however, you can plan and plan and plan, and it ain't gonna work out. Okay? I'm just gonna tell you. It's just the law of EMS. It's the law of nature, apparently. Alright, incident command is typically assumed by the most experienced and senior member of the first emergency service arriving on scene. Simple English is used for all communications. The use of codes or specific agency jargon have been eliminated. Common designations are assigned to all organizational resources, including personnel, facilities, equipment, and supplies. This avoids confusion and increased operational effectiveness between responders and agencies. Manageable spans of control are used to help maintain control of the incident. Incident facilities are identified by common terminology with specific activities and functions performed at each facility. The members of the ICS who can be found at each facility are also identified. Incident facilities include the incident command post, staging areas, base camp, helibase, and heli-spots. Distinct titles are used. Only the incident commander is called commander. Section leaders or heads are called chiefs. The incident commander is responsible for coordinating all aspects of the incident. Incident action plans or IAPs identify the objectives to be accomplished during the incident. IAPs are used to issue assignments, plans, procedures, and protocols. An integrated communications approach is organized, which ensures that the information can be transferred both inside and outside of the command structure. Accountability applies at all levels and within all functional areas. Knowing in advance who is accountable to whom provides an orderly chain of command and makes it easier for responders to check in regardless of their home agency. Each responder is assigned only one designated supervisor, the person whom that responder is accountable to. Incident command is typically assumed by the most experienced or senior member. That does not matter if it's the fire department, the EMS, hazardous materials, police department, whoever it is, okay? I just always hope it ain't me. Alright, here's your organization for a major incident in your book. Alright? The relationship of EMS with other branches, possibly including the hazmat team, police and fire departments within the operations section. The EMS branch director is responsible for managing all triage, treatment, and transportation of patients within their operation. Alright, once incident command is initially assumed by that most experienced person, it can then be transferred to the most qualified person in an orderly manner. Okay? Triage unit. This unit sorts patients by critically, by their, are they critical or not critical, and assigns priorities for emergency care and transport. The treatment unit. Emergency care is provided to patients in this unit based on the priority assigned to the patient by the triage unit. Transport unit. In this unit, patients are moved to ambulances or helicopters for transportation to a medical facility, and communications are organized to notify the receiving medical facility. Then you have staging units. Ambulances, helicopters, and additional equipment are held in this area until they are assigned to a specific task. Sometimes a supply unit is established as part of or separately from the staging unit to gather and distribute supplies and equipment required by all units. And finally, you have a morgue unit. This is where your deceased casualties are moved, where they are held and processed. In a smaller scale incident, the command structure for EMS would typically include incident commander, operations section chief, triage, treatment, and transport unit leaders. Alright, what exactly is triage? Triage is a system used to sort patients to determine the order in which they receive medical care or transportation. Triage determines which persons need immediate emergency care to survive their injuries, which patients will live with a delay in emergency medical care, and which patients will die regardless of the emergency care provided. This is probably one of the hardest things you will do, is to triage, okay? Mainly because you're in the business of saving, of helping people, okay? You want everybody to make it. But sometimes we have to make that decision that this person, even though they're still alive now, they're not going to make it no matter what we do, okay? Sometimes that's a hard pill to swallow.
Sometimes they could have been bleeding for too long and they won't be able to swallow.
Exactly. Let's see. Alright, this was at the Astrodome, where it housed 16,000 evacuees from Hurricane Katrina. Yeah, we learned a lot with Katrina. We learned a lot with 9/11. Primary triage. This is done by the first EMS crew. Alright, this also comes into play, not just big incidents like hurricanes and stuff. This also comes into play when you're responding and you have multiple responses to a crash scene. Alright, you're going to triage these people. The rule of thumb is first unit in is the last unit to leave. Okay? You're the first unit in, you're going to be triaging these people. Alright? The one that's the most critical goes on the next ambulance that gets there. Okay? And they should already be packaged. All that other trucks should do when they get there is get report from you, put that patient on the stretcher, and away they go. Does everybody understand this? Okay? Alright, typically patients are tagged with a color-coded system to allow organization of their removal from the incident sites. The start triage is performed primarily to initially categorize patients for priority movement to the triage unit. This is what we use. Okay? Each patient is triaged in less than 30 seconds. They're assessed for their respiratory status, perfusion status, and mental status. Alright. Do they have the ability to walk or ambulate? These are known as walking wounded. These will be tagged as green. You can make an announcement. I'm sure most of us, like me, can speak enough where a large group can hear you. If you can walk, please come over to this designated area over here. If you can get yourself there, please go. But what we don't want to do is allow them to continue meandering around, and they'll wander over into the red zone, they'll wander over into the black zone. They need to get one place and stay in one place, okay? If the patient is breathing and the respiratory rate is greater than 30, tag the patient as red and move to the next patient. If the respirations are less than 30, Move to assess the perfusion. If there are no respirations present upon assessment, open the airway. If the patient begins to breathe, then you need to determine the respiratory rate. If it is greater than 30 per minute, they are still red. Move to the next patient. If the respirations are less than 30 and they are breathing, you need to assess their perfusion status. If the respirations, all right. If their respirations are shallow or inadequate and require assistance, they go for a red tag as well, and you move on to the patient. If you open the airway and the patient is not breathing and they have no respiratory effort, they are tagged as black or deceased. All right, then you move on to the next patient. If their CAP refill is less than 2 seconds and the radial pulse is present, go to the neurologic assessment. If the CAP refill is greater than 2 seconds or the radial pulse is absent, tag them as red. Move on to the next patient. Keep in mind that a 2-second capillary refill. Does everybody know what a CAP refill is?
It's when you squeeze your fingernail.
Yes, when you squeeze your fingernail and it blanches and then it comes back. The color comes back. It's the sign of their perfusion status. All right, a 2-second CAP refill time is subject to many factors, including age, sex, and environmental conditions. Therefore, the radial pulse might be a better indicator. If you assess the neurologic status of the patient, they will have a respiratory rate less than 30 with adequate respirations, a radial pulse, and a CAP refill of less than 2 seconds. Ask the patient to squeeze your fingers. If the patient obeys your command, they are tagged as yellow. Move to the next patient. If your patient is not alert, does not obey your command, or is unresponsive, they are tagged as red, and you move on to the next patient. All right, here it is laid out, the whole little flow diagram. This is probably an easier way. Check it out in your book. What page is that, baby?
1329.
Page 1329. All right, Jump Start. Jump Start is for pediatric triage. Counts for pediatric differences in physiology. Used on any patient who appears to be a child. You're going to assess their respiratory status, perfusion status, and mental status. All right, we use thought triage. This is globally sorting. This system was formulated by the American College of Surgeon Committee on Trauma at the request for the CDC and Prevention and the National Traffic Highway Safety Administration in 2007. It is the intention that the salt field triage system becomes adopted as a national standard for mass casualty triage care. Right? It's not something we use here, so I mean, I guess we could, but the start triage is so much easier. All right, check that out in your book. The highest priority is a red or immediate. All right, this is assigned to patients with the most critical injuries who might survive the incident with quick treatment and transport. Notice that most of the red category abnormalities are correlated with the primary assessment. The lowest priority is green, and this is your walking wounded, okay? These are assigned to injuries in which the delay in treatment will not reduce the patient's chance of survival. Fractures and soft tissue injuries without life-threatening bleeding commonly fall into this category, all right? Then you have the yellow or delayed category. The yellow is assigned to patients who have severe injuries. However, some delay in treatment should still provide the patient with a good chance of survival. The yellow category's abnormalities would more closely correlate with those findings and life-threatening traumas identified in the rapid trauma assessment. patients should be moved from the triage unit to the treatment unit in order of their priority. Okay, you don't send a green over there before you send the red. And you don't send a yellow over there before you send a red. Red always goes first. Okay? You need to try to mobilize all patients before moving them if necessary and place them in rows according to their triage category. The transport unit leader also coordinates patient transportation with the triage unit leader and communicates with the hospitals involved. When the only patients left at the site are ambulatory, consider loading them onto a bus that has been brought to the site for this purpose. 5 to 10 personnel carrying essential equipment such as oxygen masks, suction equipment, emergency kits, and portable radios should board the bus, and fully equipped ambulance with its crew should lead the bus slowly and safely to an outlying hospital that has little or no patient load. Why would we want to take them further away?
Don't overwhelm the hospital, you took all the critical people.
Okay, you want to take your critical people to the closest hospital, all right? And if they're taking care of those critical people, they're not going to have the time or the resources or the space to take care of these walking wounded, okay? After the incident command system and mobile command centers are established, communication confusion will diminish. When you arrive at the hospital, instructions for care and treatment come from the facility's incident manager. Depending on the size and the nature of the MCI, some facilities might need your help, whereas other hospitals might have enough personnel to manage the MCI without your assistance. Alright, so reducing post-traumatic and cumulative stress. Alright, they should provide rest periods when the time arises. Okay, somebody should be circulating through all the rescuers and look for signs of exhaustion or stress. This is going to be a stressful situation. Okay. But here's the thing, you can only care for one person at a time. Rescuers should be assigned tasks appropriately to their skill level. Food and drink should be provided. Rescuers should be encouraged to talk amongst themselves to help relieve stress. Alright. Joe establishes initial incident command and advises dispatch that there are 30 to 40 patients. Tom begins triage by asking anyone who is able to leave the bus on their own to do so. Left with 9 patients on the bus, the first patient Tom comes to is a man in his 50s who is confused and having difficulty breathing. So what kind of additional information does Tom need in order to categorize this first patient? Okay. Well, he's having difficulty breathing. Do we need to know what the rate is?
Well, yeah, that's what that, and then.
Okay. Once additional help arrives, what incident command sections will be established?
Triage,
Okay.
transport, staging.
All right, the National Incident Management System and Incident Command System apply to both natural and technological disasters. All right, requirements for effective disaster assistance: preparation of the entire community, careful planning, the ability to implement a plan quickly, and effective communication among responders. Effective disaster assistance begins with emergency responders promoting the need for individual and community disaster preparedness. The plan should avoid relocating the disaster from the scene to the hospital. Use whatever means you have available to spread the message frequently and with urgency by radio, television, revolving police cars, making announcements over the PA system, public address system in buildings, shortwave radios, social media. Make sure that each message contains all pertinent details concerning the nature and impact of the disaster and how people should evacuate. The person who is designed to communicate should stay in touch with local hospitals and rescue units who might be called on to respond to the disaster. Make sure ahead of time that the person will have access to appropriate equipment to keep in touch with the outside areas. Area-wide communications are vital. They give people warning of an impending disaster and help people receive information regarding the status of family members, friends, and their community. Because it might be impossible to restore immediate telephone service to an area, establish a central location which people can register and give updates concerning their whereabouts, safety, health status, and other information. Individual rescuers should have individual portable radios to communicate with their command center. Alright, you want to include a mechanism of recording communications for later review. Psychological impact of disasters. Alright, survivors may feel guilty, have negative emotions. The reaction depends on the age, their physical health, and helping in disaster patients. Family patients need and deserve accurate information, okay? And we try to reunite the families as soon as possible, if at all possible. Identify people who are in a unique position to help recruit them for psychological emergency care. Arrange for those involved in the disaster to get follow-up care and support. Okay. The first arriving fire personnel assumes incident command as Joe joins Tom in completing primary triage. An EMS supervisor is designated the EMS branch supervisor as 2 arriving paramedics assume triage and treatment until unit positions. Joe is then reassigned to the transport unit. Alright, there are 7 immediate, which will be red, 18 delayed, which is going to be yellow, and 10 minor patients, which are green. The patients are transported to 3 local hospitals. Alright, anybody have any questions about that? MCIs, natural disasters.